Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Eldon. With me is Dalton Grimes, and we have got a special treat today for everybody.
So tomorrow is a really cool day in 2019.
Yeah, your birthday?
No.
Happy birthday, Dalton.
No.
Oh.
No, that's the coolest day in 2019.
Oh.
No, what we have is the official release date of the first set of 2019.
Yes.
And for those of you watching the video maybe a little bit later, that is Ravnica Allegiance.
Yes, that is correct.
So I'm excited because my favorite guild was in this set.
Which
guild
is that?
That would be Gruul.
Ah,
Gruul is cool.
Yes.
You're Azorius?
Yeah.
See, I could
favorite
totally
guild.
see you being an Orzhov kind of guy.
I mean, like, kind of.
I don't know. Something about you screams Esper.
Esper? Was it me? Was it me who was screaming that? Because I think I probably, I don't know, I probably would say I self-identify as most of those colors. So, okay, we've got a lot of really exciting topics to cover today, and I'm like super excited about some of them. We were talking, if you were with us earlier, we were talking before we went on the air about some of them. But yeah, let's just dive right in because this is just exciting.
And there's a lot.
Oh yeah, there is.
So Ravnica Allegiance, among other really cool cards, brings us 5 new mechanics. So
that's a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, not really in the grand scheme of things, but I wouldn't really call Addendum a new mechanic because they kind of did that before with stuff like Might of the Old Kroza.
It's now a keyword.
Yeah,
brings us 5 new keywords.
It's an ability word. It's not a keyword.
Or ability.
Completely different.
Mobby. So we have Afterlife. We have Adapt, which is also kind of a new but not new one.
Yeah.
We have Riot, Spectacle, and Addendum are our 5 that we are going to cover, which I'm sure we have. Did I?
Yeah. You left out the.
Oh yeah, I did.
Or what was the one that you left off? Now I'm gonna look down.
Oh no!
It was maybe
I did it.
It was one of them.
I did it.
All the guilds have one. That's the main point, the main takeaway there. We'll probably remember it while we're talking about something, and then we'll feel kind of dumb. But yeah, that's what they are. There's 5 new keywords, and there's some other kind of recurring mechanics. So yeah. What were you gonna talk about those the keywords?
I don't know. Do you want to?
I didn't have any okay, so this is something I kind of don't so for example, what's an addendum card that we could talk about, the
emergency powers. I'm gonna go straight for the good one.
Yeah, well that one has a lot of text on it, so I suppose. But this is the problem with addendum. If you cast the spell during your main phase, then you can put this isn't really a new mechanic for us to talk about. There isn't any weird questions that immediately jump at me for cards like this. I suppose the only kind of weird one, and this did sort of come up earlier with Might of the Old Kroza and stuff like that, is it doesn't look if you played the card at a time that you couldn't play an instant. It just looks if you played it in your main phase, right? So if you play it in response to something in your main phase, then you still get that bonus effect, and that's really the only interesting thing. Riot is the same kind of way. There isn't anything too terribly different between say Riot and Tribute, which we had earlier, or just stuff that enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. Spectacle, that's not a real weird thing.
Spectacle's bloodthirsty for spells.
You just it's an alternate cost that you can pay, so it's Adapt is also
better monstrosity.
Yeah, it's so. And then the other one that we were forgetting about was Afterlife.
Can we not think of it?
It was Afterlife.
I said Afterlife.
Okay, then you said 6 of them then, because that's all 5. I was counting as we went along.
Cool.
So Afterlife isn't a new mechanic.
Doom Traveler.
It's that's the thing. There isn't any really really interesting stuff with the new mechanics. It's mostly just okay. It's the same sort of stuff. Just on new cards. So yeah, I didn't really have any really interesting stuff that has to do with those. Like I said, with the addendum, you can play it as an instant and still get the extra effect. With the spectacle, anything that causes their life total to go down, that's loss of life, and it doesn't matter if their life total went down and went back up to the same amount. They still lost life. If they have something
paying life is loss of life.
Yeah. Damage is loss of life.
someone cracks a fetch land, that is a spectacle enabler. No. Oh, you're really gonna throw that one at him, aren't you?
Yeah. Platinum Empyrean says your life total can't change. I can't spell Empyrean today, but like, that's what it says. So like, yeah, if you have Platinum Empyrean, then your life total can't change. So your opponent's spectacle stuff is never going to be live, even if they deal damage to you. Your life total didn't change. So yeah, that's kind of like all I really had for the guild mechanics. Now, don't worry, folks. If you were expecting more exciting, super wacky rules and stuff, you come to the right place.
We got them.
So
Don't
here's something that doesn't have any of the guild mechanics on, which is it's called Sphinx of Foresight. Right?
Man, why wouldn't that have any guild mechanics?
Yeah,
you mean to
well,
tell me a 4/4 flyer that
flying isn't a
that
guild
much?
mechanic? Okay, so here's an interesting fact. You can reveal this card from your opening hand, and if you do, you scry 3 at the beginning of your first upkeep. Now, let's say your opening hand is Sphinx of Foresight, and also this card, Gemstone Caverns. Can you reveal a card? Reveal your Sphinx of Insight and then exile it using Gemstone Caverns. What do you think? Yeah, see, like this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You don't have any of this stuff with like this spectacle riot,
No, not at all.
Nonsense.
So, what's interesting about these? Would you mind bringing up Sphinx again for me? Yes, that's
we'll pull the Sphinx
our newer
up.
one. So these cards are not triggered abilities. They don't use the terms when, whenever, or at. So we're not going to be stacking our triggers, as it were, in this case.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
This one does. Scry 3 at the beginning.
Yeah,
this one is, but Gemstones, is that? No, it's not.
No,
so...
and it wouldn't work as a triggered ability because then it wouldn't be able to enter the battlefield until your upkeep. So that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that'd be a weird one. So it exists in this weird zone of things that we really didn't have to think about at first, but oh my goodness.
Yeah. So there's actually a few specific rules that say how this stuff works.
I'm gonna go with you can.
Yeah, you can. So the way that it works is the following. After you keep, and it has to be in the opening hand you keep, right, for both of these. You can't show that you're Sphinx and then take a mulligan and then go to 6 and then get an extra scry. That's not how it works.
It's a great way to meet a judge.
I mean it kind of seems like that might be what, depending on what does opening hand mean, right? That was my opening hand before I mulliganed it. So so yeah, that's unfortunately not how it works. The other thing, so. You the active player and non-active player in turn order get to do these beginning of the game effects, and so you can reveal the card, and you can take them in any order. So you can reveal the card, and then you can use Gemstone Mind's ability to put it onto the battlefield, and then if you do, you can remove a card in your hand from the game, which can be the Sphinx, and the Sphinx ability has already been set up. The triggered ability doesn't trigger on whether it's still in your hand. In your upkeep, it just cares whether you revealed it. And hey, we revealed it. No problem, guys. So yeah, you get the scry in that case. So that's kind of fun. That's kind of interesting. Now, hey, by the way, anyone who's watching us on Twitch, we already have a bunch of questions because this is what I do. I think about rules quick. If you have questions that you want me to answer, go ahead and throw those in the chat. We would definitely love to take a crack at them here.
I've got a question.
What's that?
So I'm a player that really enjoys protecting my competitive knowledge.
Okay.
And so my opponent keeps their hand of 7. I keep my hand of 7 with a Sphinx of Foresight in it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So they play their land, and then they go to pass turn. Can I then reveal my Sphinx? That way they don't know I'm going to be scrying?
So the answer to that is you have to reveal the card from your opening hand before the game starts.
But I haven't added anything to my opening hand.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
it's still there?
The reason that doesn't work is because there's a thing in the comprehensive rules that says this is a pregame action. Abilities that work this way are pregame actions, and you have to do them before the gameplay starts. So that's actually a good question. It does not work that way.
Don't try to cheese on anyone that way. Yeah. It's not how it works. Now you do, as Dave mentioned, get the scry at the beginning of the upkeep, but that's only if you've revealed the card before the game started. Yeah. Now,
of course, there isn't really generally going to be a disadvantageous. I'm not going to change what my play is from whether or not you showed me a Sphinx or not in most cases. And so there's a very real chance that if your opponent's a nice guy, then they'll let you have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not something you can count on, that's for sure.
In response to Thoughtseize, reveal Sphinx.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so how about that? How about this? Ooh, wow. Oh, man. I didn't even remember this question. This is actually a really interesting one, right? Okay, so you remember this classic card,
Yeah.
probably.
From
Steward of
Alara, you
Valorant.
bet.
Yeah, from Alara, Shards of Alara block. So it has Vigilance and it has tap at green your mana pool, right? So let's say that we have the Forbidding Spirit. Alright, so I'm going to play the Forbidding Spirit, and you have a Steward of Valoron.
Sure.
Can you attack with Steward of Valoron and use the mana that you produced from Steward of Valoron to help pay for the 2?
Man, that's beautiful.
Yeah, isn't that great? When I like made this question up, it was pretty sweet, I thought.
Oh man. So what I remember about combat is that when we are declaring attackers, we must first look to see if the attacker itself is a legal attacker.
Okay.
Meaning it's untapped, it's capable of attacking, like it's not summoning sick or anything like that.
Okay.
And then we have to declare it as an attacker. As we do so, we check to see legality of whether or not there are any effects that might prohibit it or require it to attack. Not that, the requirement is there already, but we look to see if there's any costs then associated with it, and that's the point where we can pay them. So I feel like you're able to.
Yeah, you are. And so there is a process, right? Just like there's a process for casting a spell, there's also like a series of steps you have to go through to declare attackers.
It's really long.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of steps.
Surprisingly.
One of them is banding. One of the steps is banding. Okay, the way it works is you can't tap it for mana before you start declaring attackers, right? Because obviously then when you go to declare attackers, it's tapped, and it's like, oh, tapped creature can't attack, right? But there is a thing that shows in the steps there is a time when you can activate mana abilities to pay.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, that time is after the time when attacking creatures become tapped. So it will only work if it's something like Steward of Valoron, where it has Vigilance and a mana ability.
Yep.
Right? So, because otherwise it would be tapped earlier than when you get to activate mana abilities, and then you won't be able to tap it to activate its mana abilities. So that's kind of interesting little thing there. Now here's the bonus round. Like let's say you attack like that, and your opponent has this card in play, this new card. Do they get to draw a card?
If it isn't being declared as an attacker, oh, that's a great question.
Isn't that sweet?
So Verity Circle here is going to be... Okay, so this is an intervening if, which means that when the creature becomes tapped, it has to meet the condition of not being declared as an attacker, and when it goes to resolve, it needs to be checked as not being declared as an attacker. So at that point, I feel like since it is being declared as an attacker, you're not going to draw a card.
Okay.
Ooh.
So actually you do get to draw a card, and the reason is because let's look at exactly what this triggered ability is saying. This triggered ability says whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped. Okay, so that's what the trigger event is. Steward of Valoron becoming tapped. All right, and the intervening if clause says if it isn't being declared as an attacker. Okay, it isn't being declared. So yeah, because it is being declared as an attacker, you do not draw the card. There we go. Right? That's how it works. Like if you're attacking with it, you don't get to draw a card.
Correct.
Yeah.
If it's not an attacker, you do. If it is not attacking, you draw a card.
Yeah. So you are attacking with it because it got tapped in the process of declaring attackers. That's what this intervening if clause is looking for. So even though it didn't get tapped at the normal time during that process, it still got tapped during that process. So it still counts.
That's great.
Yeah,
Hey,
isn't that great?
Can you go back to that spirit?
Yeah, the Forbidding Spirit.
Yeah.
It's very forbidding.
So with this card, creatures can't attack your planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 2 for each of those creatures.
Yes.
When do I have to pay that to?
It's
Say I'm in my main phase and you go to, destroy one of my lands. Can I float a mana and use that to pay for it?
No. And so the time when you pay the 2 is actually also part of those steps of declaring an attacking creature. There's a thing where it says then you have to look at how much the cost is to attack, if any, and then the cost gets locked in, just like when you're casting a spell, and then you can activate mana abilities, again, just like when you're casting a spell, and then the cost actually gets paid, just like you're casting a spell. So they basically copied and pasted, I think, into this section.
Yep, so specifically cards like this that work with attacking, so like this, Baird Steward of Argive, Ghostly Prison. It's not like a land arbiter where you can pay it at any point in the turn.
Yeah.
It's not that sort of special action.
Yeah.
This is a separate ability in its own category.
Right. Now, here's another interesting thing. Let's say you have this card, which is a new card that they're printing.
I think that was in one of my prize packs. I do have.
Identify what the misspelling is on Priest of the Forgotten Gods.
Oh boy. We're on it, chat. Don't you worry.
Priest of Forgotten Gods. Oh, no the. That's
They're just generic Forgotten Gods.
Yeah, I guess there must be a lot of them in Ravnica. So okay. So let's say you have this card here. Now, can you use mana that you produced using this card to help pay the 2 for Pestilence?
No.
What do you mean no? Why not?
Because that'd be too good.
Yeah, it's clearly
No, so, like David mentioned, when you go through those Declare Attackers phase, you look to see whether or not the card has any requirements or restrictions, and then you have the chance to pay mana abilities.
Right.
And so, in order to pay those mana abilities, you have to be able to activate things as mana abilities.
Okay.
Because Priest of the Forgotten Gods, as part of the cost, or as part of the ability, reads any number of target players, we no longer have a mana ability here, even though it will go on to produce.
All right, now wait just one moment, friend. Let's say, why would I not be able to use mana from this ability? What if I just like activate it earlier in the process of declaring attackers?
There's no opportunity.
Yeah, so like this is kind of interesting. The first thing you do in the declare attackers step is you declare attackers, right?
You choose the ones.
There isn't any time for you to activate abilities and then declare attackers. You start out as declaring attackers. So that means if you activate this ability anytime before the declare attacker step, then the mana is going to go away because mana empties out of your mana pool at the start of phases. But if you activate it like after the declaring attackers, the thing where you have to pay mana to pay for cost to attack is in the action of declaring attackers, which is the first thing that happens in the declare attacker step. So okay, that's true if it's not a mana build. But what if I don't target anybody? Then it won't have any targets, right? So like that should be fine, I think.
Even if you choose no targets, the ability still does have target in the ability.
Yeah, they actually changed the comprehensive rules to make this explicit because
Nice.
before they didn't have it was kind of in a gray area, but they changed the CR for this one to make it explicitly say that this is not a mana ability even if you choose 0 targets, because otherwise it like meets all the criteria for being a mana ability, right?
So I guess if you have something like a crew fix out, you can activate it earlier in the turn.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's a good one. Okay. So, anybody have any questions so far in the chat? Now, remember, we have lots of these questions coming up.
There's a chance that it may even be one.
It might be, but hey, we'll move it up in the queue.
But there's a good
if you're
chance
really curious. If you're really curious about it. Okay, but in the meanwhile, oh wow, this is really sweet, right? So, like, if you've maybe seen this card before, Pestilence Spirit. This does something that no spell has ever, or that no card has ever done before in Magic, right?
In black border, white border Magic.
What?
There's an unhinged card.
No.
With
doesn't count.
Or unstable card with.
Yeah. So it gives your instant sorcery spells Death Touch. Right. Now that's really cool, right? So we had something like this earlier. We had what's the name of that card? It was from like Kanzatarkir block that gave Soulfire Grandmaster. So like they had Soulfire Grandmaster that gave them all lifelink. This one gives them all Death Touch, which is obviously like inherently cooler. Let's say that we have the Pestilence Spirit and we're gonna sacrifice it to play a Thud. Does the targeted creature that we targeted with Thud take Death Touch damage?
So Thud deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target.
Right.
Okay. And Pestilence Spirit reads, instant and sorceries you control have death touch. Any amount of damage they deal to a creature is enough to destroy it. Yeah, that's what death touch is.
Yep.
So if we sacrifice Pestilence Spirit, even though we have begun the process of casting the spell, I feel that it will no longer retain that ability after Pestilence Spirit is
as soon as Pestilence Spirit is gone, it doesn't have death touch anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, because we like sacrificed it during the process of casting Thud, when Thud goes to resolve, it's not going to have death touch anymore, and then it's just going to be regular damage. Okay, that was like easy mode.
Now maybe if it was something like instant sorceries you control gain death touch.
Yeah, same thing.
Oh.
Same thing. But what if instead of Thud though we had this?
Or whenever you cast, that's what I'm thinking. Sack a creature, rupture deals damage. Ooh, so at this point...
Yeah. See, so this is different because the sacrificing a creature happens also when rupture is resolving.
Yes. So...
It's not an additional cost anymore.
No, it is not. So I have a feeling that we are doing this the same way.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Because when we go to resolve spells... we resolve them top to bottom, left to right.
Yes.
So in this case, sacrifice a creature is the first part of the spell.
Yep.
So by the time we go to deal damage to a target, we no longer have that creature on the battlefield.
Correct.
So it doesn't have death touch.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, alright, so that's too bad. Alright, now this one here, oh wow. I almost forgot about this card. Not really, because this is like one of the cards that like had some sirens blaring at me when I was going through the spoiler. This is
pretty cheeky.
This one's rough. Okay, so how does Amplifier work with? Let's start the bidding off easy. Let's say there's no creatures in my library. What happens?
Doing of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card until your next turn. Its base power and toughness become twice that card's power. Base toughness becomes twice that card's toughness. Put the revealed cards on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Yeah.
So if you have no creature cards in library, you are shuffling your library.
Yep.
With a 1/1.
So this is an interesting situation. So if you don't have any creature cards, then when Amplifier's base power becomes twice that card's power, then there isn't going to be a card's power to set it to, and so it'll be undefined. So it'll be a 0 power.
0/0.
And also 0 toughness, and then it'll die because it's got 0 toughness.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's kind of rough. Okay, so that's like phase 1, and like, what about this card? Anybody remember this card from Fifth Dawn?
Some sweet art.
Yeah,
excellent color work.
Why don't you look in the bottom right hand corner of this card for some unusual kerning? Yeah, no. I bet you never even knew this card existed.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it was really a big deal. They never printed a card with negative power and toughness printed on it before, but fortunately for us, they printed it. So now we get to ask these sweet questions about how it works with Amplifier. So yeah, what do you think? We'll go back to Amplifier here. I just had to have like the Spinal Parasite so that people would believe me when I said that there was a card that had negative power and toughness.
I would not have believed you at all.
No, they definitely did that.
So you reveal a creature until your turn. Until your next turn's power and toughness become twice that card's power and toughness.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a stark difference between math and magic.
There kind of is. Let's just scroll down here. So calculations can use negative numbers just fine,
yes.
Right? Like that's not a problem. But usually, if the result of a calculation would yield a negative number, 0 is used instead.
So this would be something like a Resilient Kenra was one, and that I believe came out when that changed. Was sorry to make you look up a card here. Resilient Kenra, when it enters the battlefield, it gives a creature +X until end of turn, where X is Resilient Kenra's power. When this set came out, there was the question of, okay, well, in response to this trigger, I'll give the creature -4 until end of turn. That way, the net power will be -2. So does that mean that the creature you target then gets -2 power and toughness until end of turn?
Yeah.
And with Hour, they changed that to no. You use 0 instead.
Okay.
However...
Yeah, there's one specific exception. Well, there's a couple. So if you are setting a power or a toughness or a life total, then you can just use the negative number as the result, because all of those three things can be negative. So that's no problem. So yeah, Amplifier is -2, and it dies. You know, I guess it doesn't really make a big difference, like whether it's dying as a 0/0 or dying as a -2 most of the times, except for the coolness factor. That's like for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one.
So I guess just don't put Amplifier in your
spinal
parasite.
Your parasite tribal deck. Okay. How about this guy?
So Sign of the Wild.
Did you know this used to be a rare, by the way?
Did it?
Yeah.
No, I've only seen it in Modern Masters packs.
Yeah,
and I think the only copies I owned are like water damaged ones that got stuck together or something. Irrelevant.
So what do you
Anyways,
think?
Sign of the Wild has a characteristic defining ability.
Yeah.
The easiest way to tell is that we got some stars down in the bottom right corner.
Yep. Hey, it was in original Ravnica is when it was a rare. By the way, guys.
Oh, it's only 21 cents. Yeah. You pay an extra 7 cents for that gold color.
Yeah, you do.
So anyways, what that means by being a characteristic defining ability is that no matter where this card is located, we calculate that power and toughness.
Yeah, the ability works all the time, not just when it's on the battlefield, because it's a characteristic defining ability.
Yes. So whenever you look to see Sign of the Wild, such as through revealing it to Amplifier, you get to do math and calculate its power and toughness to look at that card.
Yep.
So if you have 3 creatures on the battlefield, including Amplifier, Sign of the Wild will read 3/3.
Yep. So and then Amplifier will be a 6/6.
Correct.
Okay. So clearly the same answer for this card here. That does the same thing.
I actually had someone try to argue with me that they decided to re-template characteristic defining abilities and that this is the new way they were doing it. I was like, man, that's a load of hot garbage. So Shanna Sisei's Legacy might look like a characteristic defining ability, but it's not.
Yeah, that is correct.
Because we don't have stars, we have zeros.
Yeah, that's like not a CR approved way to check whether something has a characteristic defining ability. The stars are a helpful visual aid. If you want to be like super accurate, the reason is because this ability modifies Shanna's power and toughness. It does not set the power and toughness, or define, I believe is the word that they use in the comprehensive rules when they're talking about these things. So because they are not defining the power and toughness, rather they're just modifying them, this is not considered to be a characteristic defining ability. So of course that would mean your Amplifier is a 0/0, because just like most normal abilities, this +1/+1 is not going to happen if Shanna is not on the battlefield.
Yep.
So that was all the amplifiers that we had. We put out a lot of amplifiers there today, but one of them got to live, so that was okay.
Yes.
So any questions from anyone in the chat or anybody watching along here? Otherwise, we'll go through. Ooh, yeah. This card is pretty playable. Speaking of fire,
I've heard a lot of people hyped over this card.
This card is pretty sweet. This is pretty sweet. Like X red instant that does X damage to any target is already on the borderline of being playable. Yeah. But what if you could also? What if you could also draw 3 cards?
Red, draw 3 at instant speed.
Yeah. Why not? Right? Like that sounds like it's in the color pie, right? So wait, is that in the color pie though? Like, is that a legit thing that you can do?
I don't think it's in Red's color pie.
Yeah, but like that play. Like
it is in the legal play color pie.
Yeah, it's in the judge color pie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
the flavor judge might have to mix that one. But,
so cards such as Ancestral Vision, Living Death,
Living End.
Living
Death is the original one.
Okay, Living End, Restore Balance. These cards don't have a
keep talking. Go on.
Don't have a converted mana cost. They can only be, or they don't have a mana cost. They can only be cast through Suspend.
This is the original.
Or Splice into Arcane.
Yeah.
And as it can be read, spells without mana cost can't be played. Oh no, how are we going to do that?
Yeah,
well, Electrodominance allows us to play a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying the mana cost.
Yep.
Well, these cards like Restore Balance or David's dumb Splice into Arcane spell, when they don't have a power toughness, when they don't have a converted mana cost, you treat it as 0 for the sake of defining a mana cost. You can't just pay 0.
Yeah, that's the
and
converted
cast it.
mana cost.
Yeah, so Electro Dominance sees that card and says, this is fair game.
Cost, no problem. Yeah, definitely can play that. So yeah, that's kind of cool. So hopefully that shows up in my 24 Electro Dominances that I pre-ordered. Gonna come through for me there.
24.
You gotta have a couple backup play sets just in case, right? That's just kind of
in case you and 5 buddies are going to the...
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the price quadruples, then it's gonna be worth it. Okay, speaking of double, okay, I should have said when the price doubles. That would have been a much better
that would have been a significantly better
into this card here. So okay, we got the Biogenic Upgrade. Can you let's say I have 2 creatures that already have +1/+1 counters on them already? Sure. Can you play Biogenic Upgrade and put 3 counters on some third creature, and then double the counters that are on the third creature and your 2 others? So I'm going to target all 3 of my creatures. I'm going to put all the +1/+1 counters on this guy that doesn't have any yet, and then I'm going to double for everybody. Does that work?
Yeah. So the poor logic that would allow us to think this could work.
I mean, reading the card makes you think this works. There's no reason it shouldn't work, except for it says in the rules somewhere that's not.
Yes. So what David is implying is that you can target all 3 of them.
Yeah.
But choose to only put the counters on 1.
Yeah. And in normal English, that's what distribute means, right? If I was going to distribute 3 cookies between myself, Dalton, and some third person, and I wanted to give all 3 of the cookies to myself,
I am rioting.
I could definitely distribute all 3 of those cookies to myself. But unfortunately, that is not how it works in Magic. Anything that says divide or distribute among some number of stuff, everything that you're distributing has to get... everything that you're distributing among has to get at least one of the things that you're distributing. So that is unfortunately not a play that you are able to make. You'd only be able to double 1, or you'd have to waste some of your +1/+1 counters and put them on your other existing ones.
But if they already have counters on them, then they will get doubled.
The counters they all get doubled. It's not just the Biogenic counter up. Counters that get doubled. All the counters get doubled. Okay, what about this? What about...
They had so much fun with crab claws in this set.
Yeah, well, they must be really, really efficient. Okay, what about this? What about this? Let's say I'm going to Biogenic Upgrade on my 3 creatures, and then you kill one of them. Can I say, okay, I'm going to take the counter that I was going to put on this dead one and put it on one of my other 2? Can you do that?
That sounds totally reasonable.
Yeah. Again, this is another thing you would think you would be able to do based on the English language working here.
But going back to either our first or second episode, I can't actually remember.
When did we do casting a spell?
I want to say it was our second. I think timing and priority was first.
Yeah, it was.
When you go to cast a spell, you announce the spell, you put it on the stack, and then you determine modes, choose targets, and then distribute as part of casting the spell.
Yeah, that's one of the steps. I don't remember. It depends on what you define as a step.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the steps
Parts,
is you
sections.
have to say, if you're distributing something, you have to say what your distribution is. If the spell targets the things that are
if it allows you to distribute.
Yeah. Yeah. So some spells don't target stuff. They just have it. But that's not the case in this situation.
Yeah. So if this was a card that read something like divided evenly among.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
But this does not say that, so it's it's not the question that you will be answering.
Yep. Okay. How about this? Ooh, Incubation Druid.
Sweet. Very cool card.
Lots of stuff. So. How does X card work with Incubation Druid? And there's all kinds of stuff you can put in there, right?
Yeah.
So let's just go through like some general stuff that'll help you determine the right answer. We're not going to go through like every individual land that has ever been produced.
No, there are so many possible scenarios.
But here's some stuff that should like get you through most of what you're doing. So first of all, it says any type. Type is all 5 colors and also colorless. So you can get colorless mana out of this if you have a colorless.
I didn't even read that.
Yeah,
that's sweet.
So that's one of them. Snow is not a type. Did you know that? So if you have a snow-colored or snow-covered island, you cannot make snow mana. That because incubation druid is super type. Snow is a super type.
Yeah.
Which is misleading because that is not the same type. It's like the word counter, which can refer to like things you put on cards or countering a spell. Type used in the way that incubation druid uses it is completely unrelated to types and super types.
It's color type.
Yeah. It's
or mana type.
Yeah, mana type. Yeah, I guess. You cannot you cannot or you can make colored mana, but you cannot make snow mana because snow mana is not a type of mana. The types of mana is all 5 colors and colorless. Okay, what about this is back in the day when they were in standard. No. I'm trying to think of what the blue one is called because I want to use the blue one. But we can use the green one because it's on color, I suppose. Like what if you have like the Vivid Grove?
What is the question?
Can you make blue mana with Vivid Grove and the Incubation Druid?
Oh, Incubation is a land you control, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you see, I haven't actually played with this. Okay, that's the part I was missing here. That a land you control could produce.
Yeah.
Cool. So that depends.
Nope.
No?
Nope. You get it. Doesn't matter if there's counters on it. Doesn't matter if it's tapped or untapped. So the way that it works is the following. Let's say that any mana ability on whatever land it is, in this case, I think it's Vivid Creek. Yes. Okay. So Vivid Creek, blue is a much better color. So yeah, like any mana ability that this land has, we're gonna resolve it.
Sure.
Is there a way that we could get white mana out of this mana ability? Yep, sure is. Look. It says right
any color
on the card. It says right on the card there that any color to your mana pool, and it doesn't matter if you're able to remove a charge counter from Vivid Creek or not. It also doesn't matter if you're able to tap Vivid Creek. We don't care how we activated the mana ability. We're just going to activate it.
Ooh.
Yeah?
Exotic Grove.
Probably we're thinking of this card.
Yes.
Yeah, Exotic Orchard.
Forbidden Grove is...
Forbidden Orchard is a card. It's a different card.
No, you're Vivid Grove. That's what's throwing me off here.
There's lots of cards. Cool. Lots of vivid and exotic cards. Let's say we've got the Exotic Orchard. In that case, any land that your opponents could produce is what the game will see. So if your opponent has no lands, then this will also not be able to produce any mana. But if your opponent has a plains, you would be able to get white. If your opponent has a Vivid Marsh, then you'd be able to get any color.
Yeah, so what if I have an Exotic Orchard and my opponent has an Exotic Orchard?
Yeah.
And that's it?
Yeah, nothing.
No!
Yeah, one of you guys needs to play a real land to get some mana.
Yeah, so this is the card I was thinking of when I meant it depends. So just because it says any color on it does not mean that that's where the ability stops. We also need to look at the whole mana ability of this, that an opponent controls has to have one of those colors available. So if you are looking for your Exotic Orchard to produce that mana, you have to make sure the opponent has the appropriate color from it.
Yep. Okay. How about this card?
How about no?
Jeez, what's it called?
The catchphrase for this episode.
I was you got to remember there's a lot of cards in Magic's history.
Ooh.
Okay, so I have this land, but I don't have any artifacts.
But you have an Incubation Druid?
Yeah. So what do you think? We get the
Seems good to
the
me.
white mana. Yeah, no problem. Again, we don't care if you like could potentially activate that ability or not. We just want to know what it could make.
We care that you can.
Yeah. So that's basically. I don't know if there's any other like kind of interesting ones, but those are like the most likely to see play, I think. So that should get you pretty much where you need to go with the Incubation Druid, I think. If you have any other like specific cards that you're wondering about how it works or whether it would work, for sure we can talk about those. But
yeah, I think the only one that might cause any issues in Standard is the land that taps for any color a gate you control could tap for, and I believe there's a gate that taps for all colors.
Yeah. So like that works like the same way as those ones we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna kind of like start going a little faster because I want to talk a little bit about the policy changes.
Sure. There were a lot.
There were
oh my goodness.
So yeah, we'll kind of like go through the last couple of these here. So let's say we've got the Guardian Project, and I'm gonna play my first Grizzly Bear of the game.
Okay.
And you destroy it with the trigger on the stack.
Okay.
Do I draw a card?
Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, we have done that. If it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard, draw a card. So, it does not share the same name as another creature I control or a creature card in my your graveyard.
Yeah.
When the ability would be put on the stack. So we meet that criteria for this intervening if. So our ability is going on the stack. When it goes to resolve, it's going to say, hey, did that card or did that object, did that permanent share the same name as something that is in the graveyard, which is now yes.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
Yeah, so
You
even
don't
though
get
it
to draw
says
a card.
so the card says another creature or a creature card in your graveyard. So even though it's technically the same creature, or even though it's the same physical magic card, it is there is still now a creature card in your graveyard with the same name.
Yep.
Which is a bummer.
So wait. Oh no.
Oh no. Every now and then, magic cards are really hard
just Sticky R? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh! It should have been Justic R. That's what I. You get these dumb magic
R. It
words.
makes sense.
All right, yeah. So this is a card that's in Standard. Right now. Hey. Yeah. Let's say instead of destroying the Grizzly Bear, we use the Justicier's portal on it.
So we cast the spell.
Yeah, I cast Grizzly Bear, trigger on the stack, Justicier's portal.
That's sweet. So
because we want the Grizzly Bear to get first strike,
and if it comes back,
and also
we
to draw 2 cards.
Yeah. So when the spell goes to resolve, our Justicier's portal is going to return it to the battlefield as a new object.
Yes.
From the first one.
Yes.
So now we do have another creature on the battlefield with the same name.
Yes.
For the first trigger.
For the second one, of course, does work.
Second one's fine.
The first trigger does not work for the reason that Dalton said, which is because when it leaves the battlefield and comes back, it comes back as a new object with a new identity, completely separate from its old existence.
Regardless of the fact that it's the same card.
And so when we look at the Guardian Project, it'll be like, oh, does it have the same name as a creature card or as another creature you control? Then the new and completely unrelated to its previous existence Grizzly Bear will be like, hey, I'm another creature you control. My name is Grizzly Bear also, so no card draw for that one.
Want to join the club?
Unfortunate.
Now, if you don't get cheeky with it, you get to draw 2 cards by not responding to
I was going to say, if you only wanted to draw 2 cards, you could just wait till the trigger resolves. That's another possibility.
I guess you're responding to your opponent's removal spell.
Yeah,
cool.
Maybe.
Because your opponent's trying to stop you.
Yeah, because he was going to Doomblade me. So
there you go.
Yep.
Rats dies to Doomblade, you shouldn't play it.
Yep, bad card.
Which...
Here's another card.
How long has it been since you've seen Doomblade played in a constructed format?
Well, let's just say that I wish we had removal spells that good that we're getting printed nowadays. Okay, look at this card, though. This turn, each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Okay,
I think I know the question.
We're going to activate that, and then we're going to play our other Simic Duder, the Galloping Lizard Frog.
Not the question I thought we were asking.
Oh, no? No?
No. So what I was going to say is a creature entering with 0 counters is still an amount.
Well,
So-
I mean, like, that's true, right, with the Galloping Lizard Frog. So Dalton gives away the answer to part 1 of my question, which is does Galloping Lizard get a +1/+1 counter? And it does. No problem. Okay, so with that +1/+1 counter, what do you think? Can we remove that counter and then put double that, twice that number of +1/+1 counters
So-
on Galloping Lizard Frog?
Our Combine Guild Mage creates a replacement effect, I believe, if I am remembering it correctly.
That's correct. Yeah.
So it doesn't put counters on when it enters, it puts counters on as it enters. So the Galloping Lizrog is going to enter with a +1/+1 counter on it from the Combine Guild Mage. So then, when our Galloping Liz Frog's trigger goes on the stack, I just love it that that's a creature.
I really hate it. We couldn't have left this stuff back in Unstable.
No.
We had to put it in Serious Magic.
No, Simic is great. So anyways, ability goes on the stack. We may remove any number of +1/+1 counters from among creatures we control, not other creatures we control. So if we do, we can remove our +1/+1 counter that is now on our Liz Frog, and then we can put it back on the Liz Frog.
Yeah,
and now it gets 2.
You get double. Get the double down. So that's kind of cool. I like that. I liked that when I thought of it. Okay. So we got like probably about 15 minutes left to go. Let's talk. Okay, here's our last one. Here's
Chat,
our last,
let us know.
one.
David just said last. This can't be the end.
Well, no. We have the policy ones too.
Oh yes. Okay, cool.
Right.
Can't cast on creature spells. Seems fine.
So here's
I
an
don't
on
wanna cast
creature.
those.
Well, here's one that you might want to cast.
Ooh. Yeah.
Can I
That's
cast
4
Final
colors, David?
Yeah,
Why
well-
would I be playing 4 colors?
Maybe you have a
solid mana-based presence.
You have an incubated druid and the Spire Ministry to help you hit your colors. There you go. And you can be playing artifacts
Does
also.
Nikia allow you to make 1 mana of any color when you tap, or 1 mana that it produces?
It's any mana or of the
Type that land produces. Okay, so it is still hard to cast.
Yeah, no, it's rough. So yeah, it is all 4 colors. But hey, you could destroy any creature. What do you think? Can you sacrifice Nikia as the additional cost to play Final Payment and then destroy one of their creatures?
Float all your double mana and then kill your creature.
It's probably
That sounds dope. However, that'd be a little too cheeky.
unfortunate.
So before we even get the chance to pay the cost of a spell, the game of Magic is going to check our casting of the spell after we put it on the stack and go, "Hey, dog, is it legal for you to cast this? Can you actually cast this right now?" And with Nikia out, because it's still out, we can't sacrifice it to pay. The game's gonna say, "Nah, brah, you can't pay that. You can't cast that spell."
All right. So wait a minute.
That's my totally technical.
I heard that if you could affect the legality of casting the spell by choices that you made when you're casting it, you're allowed to assume that you are able to do that. What do you say about that?
Did this change?
Yeah, that was a rule that changed recently. What you said is correct.
Okay.
what you said is correct, but there is a rule that changed recently. Like for example, the card that they came out with it was this guy.
Void Winnower?
Yeah, right. So let's say we got like the Void Winnower out.
Okay, so it didn't change with this one.
Yeah, no, it was
Cool.
a while back. It was like a couple new sets ago. So like if you got the Void Winnower out and you got the Rolling Thunder, then like there's an X that you could choose with Rolling Thunder that would make it so its converted mana cost wasn't even. So like you're allowed to start playing the Rolling Thunder.
Yeah, so the problem here being that Rolling Thunder, when you look at it, has an even converted mana cost.
Right. Yeah.
Even though we could
one
plan
thing says
on
you
making it
you can't
odd.
play even spells. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what that policy went to change, is that even though this card technically at the time we begin casting it doesn't have a legal cost to cast, we are going to resolve that issue when we...
Yeah, as part of the process of
Yes.
testing it. So the important part is that the change that they made only affects characteristic changing things. So here the converted mana cost is a characteristic of Rolling Thunder, and it's changing from being even to being odd. So we're allowed to pretend that, it might change in the future, guys. Like, don't. But this Nikya here is making a non-creature spell. You can't cast a non-creature spell. So there's no way we're going to change it into being a creature spell, even if we kill the Nikya in the process of casting.
Can I bestow?
The bestow would work.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
If you have the Nikya, you can't bestow, obviously. But like there's a thing that says you can't play creature spells, then you can bestow through that, because that's how those. That's another thing with that changed.
Yep.
All right.
So policy.
Any more changes in the rules, you guys can ask us in the chat, and we'll talk about them afterwards. We're going to talk about the policy changes now. There's been a few of them.
Yeah, I'm going to go out and say that I have looked through the policy changes. I am not a professional yet.
Don't worry, I looked through them.
Which is gonna change, because you can find me at
is there an SCG
ND
coming up in like 2 days now?
on Saturday.
Yeah.
So
if only there was some resource you could read, and it would tell you what all the important stuff that was changing was.
That would be really sweet.
That was getting published like tomorrow morning. New set digest getting published tomorrow morning. If you don't like hearing the sound of my voice,
or if you could, watch a stream.
Yeah,
and
watch the stream and catch up with everything too, and then read the new set digest. So,
Yep.
Okay, here's my first card. What question am I about to ask, Dalton?
Delayed zone change triggers.
Wow, what a dumb Magic technical rule thing. That sounds really intimidating, Dalton.
It
Can you
does.
Explain more.
Yeah, so cards like Prized Amalgam have what we consider a delayed zone change trigger.
Yeah.
What happens is there's an event that causes the trigger to occur.
Yep.
But the trigger does not happen until a later point in the turn.
Yep.
Why was this a problem? Well, it was really easy to forget.
Yeah, I mean, like, because you don't have to remember it just once, you remember it twice. Oh,
Yeah.
geez, that's a lot.
And, like, do you actually have to remember it the first time? If I go to my end step and I try to bring it back, can my opponent say, no, you didn't announce it?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of headaches there.
Oh, by the way, it was super punishing if you, slept your return Etherling at the end step trigger. That was pretty big, feel bad.
Yeah,
So they made it so that if you have a delayed zone change trigger, then you can, always get it back. It doesn't expire after one turn. So
Yes.
that had the weird and unrelated or unintended side effect of, let's say if we have the prized amalgam and we forget to return the prized amalgam to your battlefield, hey, look, like 2 turns later, oh yeah, I was supposed to return my prized amalgam, and then you get it back. And that's dumb, because that's like not how it's, intended to work. Like, you forgot that trigger, bro. Like,
Yeah. And with Prized Amalgam, it wasn't the worst because it enters the battlefield tapped. But for other ones that would have entered untapped, it's like, oh, surprise blocker.
No, that was never an issue because the opponent gets a choice of whether to
They
return
do,
it
yes.
At the next phase. So that's fine. But Prize Amalgam was like kind of the final straw, I think, that really got people talking about this change. Because like if you miss the return to play trigger for Prize Amalgam, or Lotus God was another one, Locust God, or
Yes.
like all the other ones that have like that same
Dem
template.
Gods.
Yeah, they would come back even if you forgot the trigger they were supposed to.
Even if it was 10 turns later.
Yeah, so that's dumb. That's fixed now. So the way it is now is that Etherling you can still bring back.
Yes.
But Prize Amalgam you cannot, because the only ones that don't expire are ones that undo a previous zone change. And so that is obviously not the case with Prize Amalgam. And so therefore...
Yeah, so that'll affect cards like Etherling, Obsidat.
No, those cards are not affected.
Or-
the ones that get affected are like Lotus God,
sorry.
Seraph God,
The ones that
Prize Amalgam.
still occur.
Yeah, so this change here...
Yes. So with Prized Amalgam, obviously that's one where it could, trigger again. And, whenever a non-token creature, or whenever a creature enters from the graveyard or you cast it from your graveyard, obviously that can trigger Prized Amalgam again. But I believe the Scarab God, or the Scorpion God, or the Locust God, I believe they said when it dies, return it to the battlefield.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not going to just die again. So that one's a little more feels bad
It
from...
was a little more out of line with how we actually handle triggered abilities in most
But
cases.
also, remember your triggers.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of remember your triggers,
Yeah.
This is another one that changed recently.
Yeah, so this was a really important trigger to remember.
Yeah, it was. Because if you forgot it and then it got discovered at any point later in the game, then you just lost.
Yeah, so these triggers had a default action.
Yeah.
And the way that...
Not really sure like why this one was treated differently, but okay.
No, so...
I think there was like some long historical reasons.
And there was a lot of weird context around default actions. So, for example, Pact of Negation says if you don't, you lose the game.
Yeah, there's...
Well, how is that different from if you can't, or if you...
It was different.
Yeah, and it left you in this really weird spot of these sound the same, these act like they should be the same, why are they not the same?
So yeah,
so we clean that up.
With Pact of Negation, missing this triggered ability is actually the same as missing any other triggered ability.
Any other detrimental triggered ability.
Yeah. I mean, well, we'll talk about that one later too, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like with this, if it's caught within a turn, then you got to pay, put it on the stack and then if it's not caught within a turn, it's just forgotten about.
Yes.
Now here's an interesting one, Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you Pact of Negation my spell.
I don't want to lose.
On my turn.
I know where this is going, but I don't want to lose.
Maybe you lose. Maybe I get DQ'd. Who knows? So you packed my spell.
Sure.
Right?
Countered.
You like go through your turn. You draw your card.
Whoop.
I'm like, oh, Judge, he forgot to do the trigger. Right? So then the triggered ability gets put on the stack, and then you pay, and then that's fine.
And at this point, David still does have the choice. Do you want to put the ability on the stack?
I'm trying to win this Magic tournament here, guys. Like, this is serious business here. Okay, so obviously I'm kind of salty about that one because last year when I played in a tournament, I just won the game when that happened.
Yeah,
so,
and it was
okay.
sweet.
Yeah, okay. So next round, I'm playing against Dalton's evil twin.
Klaus.
And so, no, Klaus and you look nothing alike.
I'll just tell you about that later.
So we, do the same thing. Dalton sleeps his trigger, draws his card. So this time,
Klaus sucks.
This time, I'm a little bit smarter. I'm like, okay, we'll let Dalton play a little bit into his turn. Dalton taps some of his lands so he can play some card. Hey, Judge, I just realized something interesting. Dalton slept his pack trigger.
Oh, you just realized it, huh?
So, okay. Obviously, I did not just realize it. I was like, if I call a Judge immediately after he draws, then he just can pay the mana. Mm-hmm. But, if I wait till he plays something, then maybe he won't be able to pay the mana. And that would, improve my chances of winning this game to, maybe take it back to the old ways where I would just win the game immediately. So what do you think? Is that legit or is that not legit?
Yeah, so just as any other ability, any other mistrigger would be resolved, we put the trigger on the stack now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that I've cast a spell. It doesn't matter that I should have paid this during my upkeep. We're not going to rewind to that point. I have the choice now to pay the Pact of Negation.
Okay.
If I don't have the ability to pay a Pact of Negation, then I must do the default action.
Yeah. So wait a minute, Dalton. What would happen if you saw your opponent commit an error and didn't call a Judge?
Well, that depends on the error. If it's something such as a mistrigger, we never require an opponent to point out their... We never require a player to point out their opponent's mistriggers.
Yeah.
Now, that could be detrimental to you. You may want to point it out. Maybe it's something like at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature.
Or at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose the game unless you pay 5.
Yeah, those could be things that maybe you do want to point out.
Yeah.
But you're not required to. And if you wait to a point where it's more advantageous for you to do so, cool.
All right.
As long as you are not breaking any rules of the game in such a way that would be cheating.
Yeah. So, long story short, what I did here is completely legit.
Do it.
Do it.
Get them.
Do it and get them. Maybe not the most sporting behavior, but not unsporting.
No.
So completely legal to do in a Magic tournament.
If your opponent missed their trigger, that is their fault.
Yeah. So okay, there is that, and the only reason it's legit here and not in most other cases is because missed triggers are not your opponent's responsibility to keep track of for you. only most other stuff is.
Or I guess I could say triggers created by your opponent.
Yeah, okay, so that's another interesting question.
Also with Pact of Negation, get you by tapping 2 islands and exiling 3 Simian Spirit Guides. Ha!
So let's say that we have this preposterously expensive magic card.
Yeah.
And, okay, let's say that I have it in play, and then you have, like, all these creatures, and you're ready to go. This is the actual wording, by the way. This is the updated wording for the Tabernacle. So let's say that you forget to pay for all of your Tabernacle creatures.
Did it get changed with this update?
No.
Tabernacle has previously read, destroy this creature,
Yeah.
not sacrifice.
Oh, hey, that's weird. Yeah, maybe the Master's Edition is incorrect. Yeah, it is not sacrifice; it's destroy. Like that's how it always was. Maybe it did get changed, but I don't think so.
Yeah. So if your opponent has Merit Lage, they have
So,
it.
but in any case, let's say they sleep all the triggers.
Yeah.
Do they get to keep their creatures or not? What do you think?
Yeah. So this is a policy that did just get changed. So previously, mistrigger policy had read that if a source you control, causes the trigger to occur, it is your trigger.
Yeah.
So for example, Tabernacle Pendrel Veil, regardless of how it was printed to read,
The original wording was great.
it gives the creature this ability. So what that means is that it is not the Tabernacle that's creating the ability each time that triggers. It is the creatures themselves that create the ability.
Yeah, and that's important because it's detrimental for me to forget triggered abilities.
Yeah. So if
whereas-
David has a Tabernacle and I have all the creatures,
Yeah, which is usually how it turns out.
yeah,
That's
then
pretty much-
theoretically I have now 5 or 6 detrimental triggers that I missed.
Yeah.
And that would be really bad.
So Dalton gets a warning for missed trigger, right, Judge?
A week ago, yes.
And that was a real feel bad right there. So
Yeah.
in addition to the fact that all your creatures were getting dumpstered and you had no way to pay for, or
Yep.
no opportunity to pay for them, also you get a warning for missing some detrimental triggers. So that was obviously completely ridiculous. And so
Yeah.
now the person who gets a warning is me. I would not get a warning in this case because my opponent forgetting to pay, or my opponent having to pay 1 to keep his creature from getting destroyed is not detrimental to me.
To David.
So it's not a warning for me to forget triggered abilities from his creatures. But at the same time, it's also not a warning for Dalton because it's my card that is causing Dalton's creatures to have these abilities.
Yeah, so previously we had talked about how with triggered abilities, when determining whether or not they're detrimental, you need to look at the card's abilities in a vacuum, which seems kind of weird.
Well, that's
because
still true.
That is true, but with mistrigger policy and whether or not you're giving a warning, we don't look at the card in a vacuum. We look at who created the effect. So that's weird. So even though it's my creature with the effect, we don't look at my creature with the effect. We look at, okay, what caused this effect?
Yep.
And that is going to be David's card. So it is now David's responsibility to remember this trigger. So for example, I have Hive Mind out, and I cast Pact of Negation.
Okay.
Hive Mind says that whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery, each other player copies it and casts that card, or puts it on the stack. I don't remember, but regardless of the fact, you are resolving a Pact of Negation.
Ooh, that's a good one.
We go to your upkeep, we go to your draw step, you cast a creature, and I'm like, ha! David's tapped out. He missed his trigger. He loses the game. Right?
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. So, again, it was Dalton's card that caused that trigger.
Yes, my Hive Mind created his pact.
So that's pretty good.
So in that case, who gets a warning? Anyone? Do you have to pay?
Yeah, nobody gets a warning.
No, so no one gets a warning because...
But the triggered ability is still gonna your opponent still has the chance of putting that on the stack.
Correct. Who is the opponent that gets to choose? You missed announcing your trigger. Do you get to choose whether or not you put it on the stack, or do I?
No. The person who chooses is still based on the controller of the triggered ability. And the person who gets a warning is the only thing that is based on whether it's detrimental for one specific player or another player.
Yep. So in this case, if David misses the Pact of Negation, I still get to choose whether or not I would like to put that on the stack. But if there were to be a warning or something involved, it would go to me. Which is really weird.
It is kind of weird, but what are you going to do? This Magic is a weird game.
you're going to talk to a judge.
So, yeah, absolutely. So that was all the questions that I had prepared for us today. Did you have any other stuff, or anybody in the chat have anything else that they wanted to ask?
They did update some policy on loops.
Yeah, I couldn't really think of a situation where that would really come into play.
Which is something we have talked about a little bit before. But basically what they stated is that with loops, if there's something that requires a hidden zone to keep a loop going, it used to be that you didn't have to break that because it required hidden information, such as something in your hand. They have now stated that even if it's in a hidden zone, but is, I believe, known to all players.
Yeah, I was not able to come up with a situation where this would like make a difference that seemed like it would ever come up. So.
No, so essentially it's like if your opponent has a Teferi and you're both out of cards in library, opponent has Teferi emblem, or has a Teferi and they just keep looping their Teferi, so they cast it and then tuck it into library every turn to keep themselves alive, and you have 7 cards in hand and you discard Nexus of Fate every turn to keep yourself alive.
Jeez.
Like, it used to be that because you had those cards, because you had like a Nexus of Fate in a hidden zone because it was in your hand and then in your library, there were some weird policies with loop. At this point, if both players choose that they want to keep doing that, the game just ends in a draw. No one has to break that loop. It's
pretty soft.
Yeah.
There was also some stuff about DQs.
Yes.
Those aren't DQs anymore, they're match losses. I'm sure everybody who would be watching this is already familiar with that change because it's something that judges have probably been asking for since it started.
Yeah.
But yeah, improperly determining a winner, that's a match loss, and bribery and wagering are match losses. If you do them intentionally, those are still cheating, so you can still get DQ'd for that.
Yes, so if you didn't know it was against the rules, it is only a match loss.
Yeah.
If you knew that the rules stated that, if you knew that the rules stated that you can't do that, then it is still a disqualification for cheating.
Yeah, the really cool thing is that match losses can offset. So if like I roll a die and you agree to roll a die, then the match loss is offset and they can like, have a normal game.
It's still tracked. Both players still technically
sort of.
Yeah. But what this means is that, the 8-year-old kid at your FNM that didn't know they couldn't do that doesn't get got.
Yeah, they're still getting got. Let's not be, because it's generally going to happen in like the last or next to last round. So like losing the match there is like basically the same thing. But hey, they can still like play it out.
I've seen stores that do like packs per win. Yeah. So in the end of round 1, you're just like, oh, well, who's going to get the pack? Let's roll a die.
So another really important, and this is like the actual important change. The rest of that's like substantially pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. But like the real thing that's important is like you cannot say stuff like, oh darn, we're gonna like draw. That hurts like both of us. If only there was something we could do. You can't say stuff that is intended to get your opponent to make an offer that's illegal. That is actually something that also falls under those categories.
It's coercion.
So it's like if you like say something like that, like what I just said, that's improperly determining a winner because you're trying to get your opponent to improperly determine a winner. So it's like the same thing. The same sort of thing with bribery and wagering. If you say something that is intended to get them to propose a bribery or wagering instance, then that would be an instance of you getting that infraction rather than them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of, I like that. I think there's going to be a lot of kinks to work out from that. But
yeah, sure it will take a while for the information to disseminate among judges
and players.
So if you're ever unsure about something like that, if it comes up in a match and you're not sure,
same idea.
well, as a player, call a judge. As a judge,
Talk
go
to the
find a
head
team
judge.
lead, go find a head judge, get a sanity check, make sure that you both understand the policy.
Yeah.
And if you don't both agree 100% on it, talk to a head judge.
Yeah, and then the head judge is like there for those types of purposes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It is their job to know that.
Yep. So that was all the information that we were planning on covering today.
That
It
was a
went
lot
a
of
little bit
information.
long, but the new sets are always like super fun times for everyone.
Yes.
If you liked this and you want to see it in article form, then we'll have the new set digest up this week.
Yep.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
And Dalton, I'm sure. We talked about that last broadcast about how it was a great idea to like read the new set digest articles to get prepared for the new sets.
Yeah, we did.
So yeah, everybody look forward to
Yeah,
that.
maybe if you're driving to SCG Indy, or not driving, if you're a passenger.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're driving, then have someone read it out to you.
Yeah, or if you're traveling in the seat and you need something to read,
Yeah,
go
there you
ahead and
go.
give it a shot.
All right. So hope you had a great time, everybody. This is Dave and Dalton signing off. Have a great evening.